Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday, November 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. And just looking at the daily chart, you can see, man, what a big rally today. I mean, we really rallied off this oversold, and we shot right through support resistance here, shot through the EMA with no resistance. Now we shot through this and closed above it. So this thing's on a tear at the moment. Looks like we're probably going higher. I would say we're probably going to retest these highs right here. It depends on what ends up happening here. If we were to push back down and find some resistance there, then we could go lower or just sideways. But if we continue on, my next target will be this pretty much a double top here. Um, and then we'll reevaluate from there. So that should be the next target if we push through this piece right here. I think we need to push through that and find it. So we didn't even come back and test this support yet, nor this one. So we could pull back and test this one before we go higher. We didn't even we need to pull back and test the EMA generally, but if this thing's super bullish, we may not. It may just shoot on up until it turns back down again. So we'll see what tomorrow brings, but right now this thing is very bullish. Don't argue with it. If the market stays this bullish, just keep buying. That's all you can do. And but right now it looks super bullish. We'll draw it like that for now. I don't know if that's exactly correct or not, but we'll draw it like that for now. Seems to be fitting off these lows. Where the high is kind of hard to say. Looks like it's right here. Generally, it's going to be kind of like that off the last move up. So if that's the case, we may have quite a bit of room to go to the upper side. So of course we could have an overshoot there. It's kind of hard to say just yet. So come on, we'll leave it like that for now, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. This is Thursday, so this will wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays for anybody new. But very bullish day. We attempted two measured legs up. We didn't get anywhere close to it. We had more than two measured legs based on the temporary range that we had at the high. Let's wait till we get over there, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, so it's not too confusing. But here's what it looked like. So you would want to measure this first leg up and see how we relate to that. And so a measured leg based that way puts us up here. It looked it looked like that was really for asking for way too much at the time this morning. We were trading down in here, but we came close. We didn't miss it by much. And the other way you would measure would be the width of this range we had here, and you can see we reached it. That'd be this dashed blue line. Let me zoom in a little bit. The dashed blue line, you can see we did find resistance there, and then it acted as support, and we just kind of continued to push a little higher. We really went sideways right into the close, and then of course at the close we pushed higher, but we sold some of that off before the market finally closed. When I say into the close here, I'm just talking about into the 2:30 cutoff time. But the close is over here, and when it's not quite 5 yet, so we hadn't quite opened back up. We'll open back up for tomorrow's trading here in about 15 minutes or so, 16 minutes. But there's what it looked like, and you can see we didn't quite make that measured move. Got much closer than I expected we would. I figured we'd probably make a measured move based on the width of the range. But that's why you never go with what you think. You only go with what you see and what the market gives you, because we're not always right. I can guess at it quite a bit and be right more times than I would expect, but you only got to be wrong a few times if you're trading that. So never trade what you think. Obviously, use your experience and your thoughts to help lead you, but just follow the price action. Don't argue with it. If you're wrong, you're wrong, and never argue with the market because it's never wrong. Uh, we might be overbought right now. Really, the daily doesn't say we're overbought, but we've had four big rally, especially the last 2 days have been huge rally days. I mean, we rallied from 42.55 to almost 100 points today, and same thing yesterday, very similar. So those are big moves. But anyway, let's zoom in, go through the trades. There was a 7:30 early news item this morning that you had to actually I think it was 7:30. So from really 7:15 on. So really it's not worth. There wasn't anything prior to that, so it wasn't anything worth trading there. We continue to kind of push up. We did pull back to the trend line here, and that we'd already confirmed it here. That was like right at 7 o'clock, but there's no setup there. But the trend line was confirmed. So when we came back here, and notice what we've got. We're working down, you get a first entry. You worked on down, you get a second entry. Not a great place to enter on a second entry. We just look how many times we'd already bounced off the highs and we're coming back. You would want to see at least a break and a new low or a higher low or something before you'd go long there into the. You just can't go long into that trend line coming down through there. But it works down, and finally you get a third entry down here, but it's a higher low first. Notice we bounced off the trend line. We tried to go lower, failed, and turned up. So if it breaks above that on that higher low, we're probably going to keep going, and you may get a scalp out of it. You should get at least a scalp out of it. You may get more, but I like that as a higher low, and good signal bar, relatively low risk, only 7 ticks. And I marked it green. It's not a perfect setup because it does look like it could be a little congested, but you can clearly see it climbing up the trend line. And we've already had a break or close outside of the downtrend here, right here. And we got a new low and then a higher low. That's a good sign we're going higher. I like that trade. I still marked it green just because it looks like it could be a little congested. And somebody the other day asked me, when is it okay? What's the rule on that? When is it okay to enter in congestion? Well, here's the thing. There's no rule that says you can't enter in congestion. But understand that congestion, which is this right here, all that is a miniature range. And what happens when prices break out of a range? They fail and snap back. Even if it's only going to be temporary, they do it almost every time. It's almost so consistent it's almost a sure thing. You can bet on it failing first, even if it's going to continue on with the breakout. So what'll happen on something tight like this is that it'll break out, and see, it did. It broke out and failed here, but it didn't fail enough to stop you out. But a lot of times it will come back and stop you out and then go exactly where you thought it would. So your best bet is, until you're super experienced and you kind of understand and see what's going on here, just don't trade congestion. So there's no rule that's going to help you. There's nothing but experience that's going to help you. And even then, you'll get it wrong sometimes. It's just the way it is. So, it's just like trying to trade a break out of a range. If you do that, you're going to fail more times than you're going to succeed. And I can't tell you how many trading plans I've seen that say, whichever way it breaks out of the range, go with it. Well, most of the time you're going to lose if you do that. You're not going to win very often. Your best bet is to fade it, is to take the opposite trade of the breakout, because especially when we're scalping, because all we're looking for is a scalp. If it turns out to be a failed breakout in the high of the day, then we're going to have if we trade that with a runner, we might get a great runner. And I've shown many times where that happens, and there's probably one on this chart. I think there's a breakout over here that failed, and it turned out to be the low of the day. And if you catch that, you get a runner and you ride it all the way up. I see it over and over every day. So these are sometimes worth taking on the breakouts. But anyway, I like that one. It is a little aggressive because it looks like it could be congestion. And you see it did break out and snap back, but it just was not one that took you out of the trade because the trend line's there protecting you. The other thing that I don't like about this one is we closed below the EMA. If this would have closed just above it, I would have liked it a little better. Or if it would have... there's a couple of things that I think they make matching lows right there. Let me just double check that. The low is 91 1/4. Yeah, it makes matching lows. If that would have broke lower and failed and then turned up and went higher and closed above that, I would have liked it. I might have made it blue then. But because it closed below and it looks, you got a 3-bar matching high and it looks a little congested, I made it green. So hopefully that's helpful to you on congestion. But there's no rule. There's nothing but experience that will help you with that. And even then, I'm talking about, You need to just, your best bet is if you're new at this and you're trying to get profitable, is just don't trade congestion. I get people that send me the chart every day, and every trade they pick out is in congestion. They thought say something like, "Well, I thought it looked okay because of this." No, the reason you don't trade here, right here, look, it broke out and it failed, and it came back just enough to stop you out, and then it turns and goes exactly where you think it's going to go. That's what happens to you in congestion. So it's not, if you trade it, most of the times you're going to get stopped out. And so just don't trade it until you're experienced enough to know for a fact if you should take it or not. And even then, you'll get it wrong sometimes. So, but anyway, we moved on up. I don't see anything else here. Here's another little failed break lower, but there's a lot of resistance across there. And I didn't draw anything, but there's plenty of resistance across there. There's just no reason to trade that, because it's too risky. You don't have any room. It could break. It could go up to the high and just come back and stop you out, or it could break out just a little bit. You need enough room to get out, and there's just not any there. So runs on up, turns down. There's a lower high here, but that's moved too far to trade that as a lower high. It actually breaks lower first, I think, and then goes back up and comes back down again. Either way, it's not tradable. And then suddenly you do get a close outside that channel though, and we get a big move down, and then you try to go lower once, twice. So you got a triple test there, and you're making a higher low every time and a higher high every time. So you might take that, although it looks very congested. This one moved enough that you would have gotten out of it before you did get stopped out, but you may not. So I mark this one green. But when it comes back and makes that lower high, or lower lower, I'm sorry, and stops everybody out and then turns back up, if it breaks above that, I'm going with it, because you've already pushed out and cleared out all the sell stops. And so if it comes back, it's more apt to take off this time, and sure enough, there it goes. So I like this, trading this pullback here. Again, it's just right back to the trend line. This is my computer did another update, and sure enough, my mouse is acting up. It should be more like that right there. But takes off. You get an overshoot here. I'm pretty sure. I don't know for a fact that's an overshoot, but it looks like one. If you move it up there, maybe it's not. It looks like it's two-tiered. But runs up. It's two legs up. There's a second entry short. You don't want to go short here because we're still in this channel. It looks like you do get a close outside here. And I wouldn't call this a second entry long. We broke higher, and then we started from the same point. If it would have broke lower and then turned up, when it went past there, it would have been a second entry. But that's still just part of the same move. So your next entry doesn't come till here, and you've already made a new high. So another first entry, another first entry, another first entry. Just, this is all too sideways, no real good setups, and then suddenly you get a close outside. It tries to make a new high and just turns down. I don't see anything back to the downside that you can trade here. And you get this failed breakout. But notice we got a close outside, a couple of moves down, and then one more push, and it reverses. And we're a long way away from the EMA. Again, it's one of those that you might try to catch, but it's aggressive. So, but most breakouts are going to fail. And as congested as that is, when it breaks lower and makes a new low, you're better off to wait on a higher low. But these are worth taking a chance on. If you're already profitable and you don't have many losers, then this is worth risking, because you catch these kind of moves. Just make sure it's a good setup, and make sure you're experienced at it and you got the experience. But we clearly got to close outside and a few swings down, and this is kind of like a reversal bar that traded way down and then ends up closing. It takes a lot of buying to pull that back there. So if it breaks above, we're probably headed back to the EMA at a minimum. We'll probably get back in the range, and we could go all the way to the other side, and we could just keep going too. But we're at least probably going to try to go test the midline and the other side. And sure enough, there it goes. And so that's a great trade there on higher. And this actually broke lower and turned up. And you could trade that on the engulfing bar. I'd probably wait till that closes to make sure this doesn't end up as congestion. Moves up, then we're going sideways, and there's another one. It breaks out and fails, comes back, breaks out the lower side, fails. It traded out, but it didn't really. It really wasn't a failed breakout on those two, but it trades out, and then you get a high or low here. But notice that new high. Um, it breaks. I think it breaks lower first and then turns up. So it's really just a first entry, but it's a high or low on a breakout. And when this one, I wouldn't trade this on the engulfing bar here. I'd wait for it to close, and if it closes bullish enough, go long above it. And there it goes. I still made it green because we came back into this range, so it still looks kind of congested range like, and we didn't really have enough room back to that high there. But we're most likely with this failed breakout, if it keeps going higher, there's a good chance we're going to at least fail out the upside, but we'll probably break out. So and it takes off, and that's a really strong move up. And notice how it keeps trying to break through. It can't, but it can't sell off either. So this is acceptance at this price. This is not rejection off the range like you would normally want to see when it turns back down. You want to see it turn down, and it didn't. It just keeps working sideways, and it's actually kind of making some higher highs and higher lows. That's not a good sign for going lower. And then suddenly it breaks out and off it goes. Now, it's tempting to want to go long here, but you want to see it test that a few times, and you don't get it. It just runs up, and then it's going sideways. But here it does test it. It makes that low, tests it once, tests it twice. And notice how everything's still closed inside that trend line. It's moved again. So I like that as a triple test. And again, it breaks lower and turns up. I don't know that I'd trade that on engulfing bar, but when it closes up here real bullish, I like going long there. It's right off the key entry point, so we'll probably keep moving. Keeps running up. Comes back, you finally get a break, and again it tries to go higher 1, 2, 3 times, and it can't make a new high. Maybe you go short right there because it is a second entry short, and it did make a triple test. And most breakouts fail, so there's a good chance we're going to come back and test this. And so maybe you go short there. There's not a lot of room back to the EMA, and we haven't really broken through it yet, so that's a concern. But maybe you take that because it is a triple test and a second entry short when we're expecting a failure on a breakout. So anyway, comes back, gets back in the range, quickly reverses and comes back out, and then we're just working sideways again. There is another second entry here, and this is technically not congestion. You don't see the little doji bar here, and you did get a close outside, and then you made a leg up, come back, a leg up. So it's 2 legs up. It's a relatively bearish bar. I didn't mark it, but you could technically go short there. So it should at least be green, and it's close to being red because you got everything played out here, and it's a second entry short, and it's really not congested. Yeah, they're going a little bit sideways, but we're making lower high, or higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then suddenly it reverses. And that's a very bearish bar. And it is notice there's new low, and you get a first entry, and then it turns back up, and you get a second entry. So I like that trade. I left it green, but of course we come down, and you get a close out here in a new low, and then it reverses. This looks congested. There's not much room back. 3 bar. I'd wait on that one. Runs up, and same thing, kind of breaks out, and you test it. You really tested it 3 times here, but that's just a doji. You can't really take that one. Then it comes back again here. Notice the trend line working down, and this still closed inside. So I like that as a triple test. Bearish bar, just go short right there and look at it. Trap some longs, boom. And then we're working sideways again. There's nothing you can take in there. Notice what happens when it breaks out. It fails and comes back, and you're just stuck in a different range until it breaks out here. I mark this one green because it's a breakout. It's fairly bearish. It's not the best signal bar, but if it breaks lower, it's probably going to head back to the other side. I did mark it green just in case, but I'm not crazy about it. Then you get a triple test down here with a nice signal bar, but there's not much room back. You did just break out though. So if you got a really, if you had enough room there, maybe you'd take that, but you don't. Then you get a high or low, but you can see it struggling to get through that. It does end up breaking through, but you can't trade that. Runs up, close outside, a couple of moves up, no short this time. Comes back, and now you would have drawn your trend line off these swings, and it comes back and it holds perfectly right there. And this is a double top, so this is like a new high, and that's a first entry. Then it comes back here. If it breaks above, that's a second entry long. And this is played out coming down. This blue trend line is clearly still in play. This is a high or low on a second entry long. If it breaks above that, we should go back and test this and try to make a new high. And actually, this is a new trend working up here, so, and it really looks more like this. And you do get a close outside and new high. Of course, you're just in congestion there, and it fails out the bottom, and off it goes to the high side again. I didn't draw it here. We'll draw it just for. You can see the fail breakout. So if you had enough room there, and you have just enough, I don't know that I'd take that with that small. I mean, there's 6 ticks in there, so you could get a scalp out of it. So maybe you take that one. And it runs up, pulls back, and then you're just chopping sideways again. It's just so much of this lately. It's frustrating. And you just don't get the setup side of it. So, but there it is. And you can see it breaks out and fails before it goes higher. And that's why you have to be careful trading it, because a lot of times it will stop you out before it reverses and goes back in the right direction. So let it break out, fail, and then redetermine if it's worth getting in. And here we're just chopping along. You do get a breakout. This is your signal bar though, not any good. This is an inside bar. Skip it. And we're just back sideways again. And finally it breaks down there. You can tell we tested that multiple times across there. Really, you're just still inside the range, and you tried to go lower. It's a failed second entry short, although we're not really looking for that here. But it's a good enough reason with that nice signal bar. And it does break lower below those matching 3 lows there and turns up. So if it breaks above that, we're probably going to the other side. I like that one. Not enough room to scalp out here. We're really still in an uptrend, although we've gone flat here. So you could trade this either way, really, if you had a good setup. That one's tempting, but we've struggled to go above the midline. We did here, but then the next couple of bars we've been struggling to go above it. So I don't know that I take that. It would have worked. You do actually get a higher low here. You couldn't wait till here to go long. Maybe you trade that on the engulfing bar, but I don't think I would, because it's got a lot of stem to it. So I think I would sit and wait, and then suddenly you get another push down, and it bounces right off that, but we're still closing inside the main trend line. So it looks like the trend's still in play, and now you've broken out and kind of cleaned it out up there. You got plenty of room, so maybe take this one, and there it goes. It goes right to the top. Breaks out the top and fails, just like what I talked about earlier, that almost always fails. You don't really get a chance to trade it. It trades back in, bounces at the midline, and it's after 2:30 then. So that was pretty much it. So there's several trades in here. It's not for such a strong up day. There's not a ton of trades, but there's more than enough to find you 2 or 3 nice trades here. So anyway, we'll see what tomorrow brings. No chart lesson again tomorrow, though it's Friday. I've been taking off at noon on Fridays, just trying to get a little bit of a break. But hope you had a good trading day. I hope your week's been good. I'll post my mid-morning chart tomorrow and probably trade for an hour or two, and then I'll take off around lunchtime, and we'll be back again to do it Monday. So, but anyway, I'm done for today. Um, we'll be back Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.